They said she could sense them before they came, that she would halt mid-ride, close her eyes, and lift her hands to the sky, feeling something in the air or the earth or perhaps in her bones. And then she would speak. They are near. And every time she was right. Lozen was her name. Born to the Chihen band of the Chiricahua Apache, she lived in a time when the old ways were dying and a new, cruel world was tightening its grip on her people. But while others were forced to bow, to bend, or to vanish, Lozen stood, and she fought. Not just with bullets or blades, but with spirit, purpose, and an unshakable belief in her people's right to exist. A woman among warriors, a warrior among legends, and one of the last true shields of the Apache. She was born around 1840, near what is now Ojo Caliente, New Mexico. Her people called that place Warm Springs, and it was sacred. The hot water flowed year-round, the valleys were rich with deer and mesquite, and the mountains offered protection from outsiders. She was the younger sister of Victorio, who would one day become a chief. And even as a child, Lozen was different. She rejected the traditional path expected of girls. She wanted to ride, to hunt, to fight. And the Chiricahua, a practical people, let her. What mattered was survival, and Lozen was very good at surviving. By her teenage years, she could break a wild horse, shoot a rifle from a full gallop, and vanish into the desert without leaving a footprint. Victorio trained her, trusted her, respected her. And when the warriors gathered for council, Lozen was there, not in the shadows, but among them. There were whispers that she had a gift. When danger loomed, she would stand still, arms raised, palms open to the wind. Her eyes would close, and for moments at a time she would not speak. Then, with absolute clarity, she would say, "They are to the east," or "They ride from the south." And they were, every time. Some said it was spirit power, others said it was just instinct, sharpened by pain, hunger, and war. But whether divine or learned, her senses became her weapon. In the 1860s and 70s, the pressure on the Apache intensified. White settlers pushed westward. The U.S. government carved up native lands into reservations, promising food, safety, and peace in return for surrender. But those promises were hollow. The San Carlos Reservation in Arizona, where the Chiricahua were eventually forced to go, was known as Hell's 40 Acres. The land was dry and useless. Disease ran rampant. Rations were rotten or stolen. Soldiers abused the people. Sacred traditions were banned. Freedom was gone. Victorio refused to stay. He led his band, about 300 people, back into the mountains. Lozen was his second in command. Together they waged a guerrilla war against the United States and Mexico. For over a year, they evaded cavalry patrols, raided military camps, freed imprisoned Apache, and slipped across borders like smoke through brush. Lozen was everywhere, riding ahead to scout, slipping into enemy territory to gather intelligence, carrying food to mothers with babies, and when needed, picking up her rifle and standing her ground. She was relentless. In one story passed down by survivors, a group of warriors had been pinned down on a ridge by Mexican troops. Their ammunition was low. Lozen crept through the rocks, stole bullets from fallen enemies, and returned to her people with powder-stained hands and a calm smile. When Victorio's band needed horses, she didn't wait for an opportunity. She made one. With a group of women, Lozen slipped into a Mexican village under moonlight, untied the animals from their posts, and rode off without a sound. She was fearless. And yet, she was not hardened. She cared for the wounded. She sat with children when they cried at night. She sang songs to the elders, and when women gave birth on the run, Lozen helped deliver them with steady hands and soft words. In 1880, her path turned. Victorio asked her to leave the war party temporarily. A young Apache woman, pregnant and weak, needed to be taken to safety. It was a long journey across hostile ground, through canyons and valleys patrolled by both U.S. and Mexican forces, and yet Lozen accepted, without hesitation. She guided the woman north, walking when the horse grew tired, sharing her last food and water. At one point, they passed within earshot of enemy soldiers, and Lozen sang quietly to keep the mother calm. They made it to the Mescalero reservation, hundreds of miles away. The woman survived. The child was born. Lozen rested for only 1 day. Then she turned around. On her return journey, she disguised herself as a man, stole a horse, and misled a cavalry patrol by riding in circles to leave false trails. By the time she made it back, she had traveled nearly 500 miles through enemy territory, alone. But the world she returned to had changed. Victorio was gone. In her absence, his band had been surrounded at Tres Castillos by Mexican forces. With no water and little ammunition, they were slaughtered. Over 70 men, women, and children. Dead. Victorio, too. It broke something in Lozen, but not her will. She joined the remaining Chiricahua, who were now following Geronimo. He was older than her, and already a legend. But even he listened when Lozen spoke. She became one of his top advisors, equal to the men beside him. Geronimo knew she could read terrain better than most scouts, feel danger before it struck, and steady even the most panicked riders. The Chiricahua now numbered less than 40, but they were still defiant. They continued their raids, stealing supplies from ranches and army camps, avoiding capture with terrifying precision. Lozen helped lead many of those missions. She became something of a ghost to the U.S. Army. Officers would report seeing a tall, dark woman dressed in men's clothing, riding at the head of Apache bands, always 1 step ahead. Scouts would follow tracks into the hills, only to find them disappear mid-trail. No one could catch her. But time was running out. By 1886, after decades of conflict, the Chiricahua were exhausted. They had no allies left. Their horses were thin, their children sick, their elders dying. Lozen pleaded with Geronimo to keep going, but she knew in her heart that the end was near. In September, Geronimo surrendered to General Nelson Miles in Arizona. Lozen was among the handful of warriors who laid down their weapons that day. She was 46 years old. She had never been captured. She had never surrendered, until that day. But the peace that followed was not a peace at all. The entire Chiricahua band, including women and children, were sent to prison camps in Florida and Alabama. Lozen was sent to Mount Vernon Barracks. It was a place of rot and sorrow. The climate was foreign, the water was tainted, disease spread through the air. Dozens died. Lozen, the woman who had survived every kind of hardship, who had ridden through fire and thunder, began to cough. Her body weakened. Tuberculosis took hold. There was no medicine, no healing herbs, no mountain wind to clear her lungs, no stars above the canyon, just the walls of a military prison. She died in 1889. No photograph of her survives. No grave marks her name. But her story lives, in the winds over Ojo Caliente, in the whispers of desert canyons, in the memory of a woman who fought with vision, with courage, and with unbreakable spirit. They called her the shield to her people. But she was also the blade, the heart, and the voice in the wind that said, "Keep going." Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.